And so I said, that's something fairly easy to get on a camera. And that should have been out within 24 hours. But there was never any video footage. So that brought me to the first pause, because it is completely possible this happened in a dark alleyway. It's possible. Alleyways still exist. But that was not the story.
So my first red flag was him not wanting to turn his phone over to the police, because my whole framing is, because my understanding about Jussie is that he had been pretty like vocal kind of social justice advocate, right? Like that had been part of his thing.
Yes,
right. His celebrity platform, if you will, had been to talk about gay rights and intersectionality and Black people's rights. Like that was my whole thing, my understanding of him. And so to me, if you are saying that this was a hate crime, that was his allegation, that there was some racial and homophobic undertones that had happened. He also connected the events of the night of January 29th with some hate mail that he had received earlier on the Empire set, right? That had been also homophobic and racist in nature. So why would you not facilitate cooperation with a investigation of a hate crime if that had been your platform? And so if you take the stance that we all know CPD is corrupt, then you, with someone with his level of status, could have facilitated that through a mediator, through an attorney, could have made some specific requests around how that material was presented to CPD. Like, those things can happen to help sort of mitigate or increase the objectivity that evidence would have been taken, gone through the chain of custody in a kind of more verifiable way. That was one for me. Two for me was still having the rope around your neck when you were being interviewed by the police. That feels a bit like staging. That feels a bit like costuming to me. I'm just going to say that if someone had put a noose around my neck, I wouldn't continue to let it hang around my neck after I've begun the recovery process. Like if I'm home being interviewed, or at least in a hospital setting being interviewed by the police, I'm up, I'm conscious, I'm talking, I'm going to remove that from my neck.
But can we go there to that news for a second? I really have to go there. And I'm going to say this and try not to be a jerk, because as you know, I do have a balanced approach, but I also do have a cynical side. Honey, I can be shady. So the whole noose thing, I say to myself, if I were a white racist homophobe who wanted to do this, would I buy a noose and not use it for its intended purpose? Like, would I just wrap it around your neck as a show of oppression? Or would you be dangling from somebody's pole someplace? Like, what is the purpose of that? And I think, to your point about setting the scene, sometimes, and I say this to my actor friends, and we have these conversations, sometimes when you set the scene, you don't need every single prop. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to have the noose there. You can stand underneath the tree and sing, "Southern trees bear a strange fruit." But I don't need a noose around my neck to get that same effect.
Correct.
And so that is a bit, I don't want to use the word disingenuous. So I'll say it's allegedly disingenuous.
No, but also, I guess what also like feels, and so this is where I put my psychologist lens on things, right? And so in psychology, people are familiar with, I think, shows like, what's that show? with my boo boo thing.
Look at you saying people are familiar with it, but you don't know what it is.
No.
So are we familiar though?
What's the show, honey? Criminal Minds, right? Shows like that where there's the forensic.
I'm sorry.
Right?
I'm an SVU person myself. So if it's not Mariska Hargitay, I'm not interested.
They come on there and he'll do his little profile on.
Oh, are you talking about my BD Wong, baby? That's my boo boo. I love me some BD Wong. So, hey, BD. Hey, baby. He's so sexy. Yes, he is.
Oh, you love a little pocket game.
I do. Oh my goodness. Oh my God, that was just too real.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, so I think people have some familiarity with that in the professional practice of psychology, or what we'll talk about is a case conceptualization. So how do we think about all these pieces fitting together in a coherent whole? And what can we use? Like, what is our working theory to help understand this person's psychology? And so from a case conceptualization standpoint, what doesn't align for me from the perpetrator standpoint is that this was both a crime of opportunity and a crime of planning, right? Because how would they know he would be at the subway at 2 a.m. in the morning, but these were also the people that had kind of been plotting against him?
But
right?
You also asked who was walking around with a noose. That's not something people just walk around with.
How could they then run up on him, happenstance at 2 a.m. at the subway, but also have the noose on them? Those pieces don't feel congruent to me.
Can I also say this? Just because I gotta get this out. If I am that racist, and I don't like black people, and I don't like gay people, in what world would I be tuning in to Fox on a Wednesday at 10 p.m. to look at a show that is nothing but black people and a few gay people?
Marissa Tomei on there. It's one white person, right? I don't watch the show, actually.
I don't know, because I actually don't look at Empire. But here's what I do know. I do know the character of Cookie. And I do know the character of, what's his name? Lyons. He plays Lyons. Lucius Lyons. Lucius Lyons, right? So I'm going to say this, and it's people who are fans of him will be in their feelings for a minute. And I completely understand that. But if this was Terrence Howard who said this, it would have been a different conversation, because Terrence Howard's notoriety and celebrity is greater than that show. Right? But you would have to be a fan of Empire to know this character and know this person and know this person by name. Right? If I didn't look at Empire, I'm not sure I would know who he is, because the only other thing I've seen him in was the movie, it wasn't Alien Covenant. Oh, Prometheus, I think it was, or maybe it was Alien Covenant, one of those. I think it was Prometheus. It was Prometheus, right. So there it is, right? So I saw him in that. He died off in that. Bless his soul. Thoughts and prayers to him. In that, thoughts and prayers to his career in real life,
Correct.
So it just doesn't. I've never seen racism outside of people like a David Duke or Richard Spencer as being that intelligent and thoughtful and specific and dedicated and focused. Racism,
I don't find Richard Spencer intelligent or thoughtful or educated. David Duke.
To the ones who believe that mentality, those people plan things, they do things, and they do have an intellect. You may not agree with how they choose to use their intellect, but there's an intellect behind what they're doing. I know we can agree to disagree. It's okay. I understand. Okay. You're looking at it from the perspective of hatred negates the intellect, but I'm looking at it from the perspective
that's not even it.
Okay.
A friend of mine posted on Facebook recently to say, I've never met a racist who had above mediocre intellect. feel free to chime in. And I was like, me either, now that I've thought about it. I mean, I think there's more strategy behind like a David Dupe.
Well, then let's use that then. Okay.
Fun fact, I was a senior in high school when he was running for governor in Louisiana. So those were really good times at a predominantly white elite high school. So that was fun for me.
Awesome. Did your family vote for him?
We did not, but
I wonder why
black students that attended the white school got victimized on a regular basis during that year, but that's okay.
No.
And I think there's some strategy behind Richard Spencer, but I've seen him in intellectual conversations with black intellects, and he fails hard and fast every time. So I'm not that compelled.
I mean, he doesn't have to be the smartest person in the room.
I mean,
right.
That's a digression for me, because what makes this whole incident even conversation worthy is the fallout, right? So for me, I personally think that there needs to be a bigger and better conversation about mental health. And what does that look like? I personally have deep concerns about Jussie Smollett's mental health. I'm not sure that he is, and so I worry that oftentimes behaviors and choices that are the result of a compromised mental health become criminalized, and that happens, I think, more disproportionately so for folks that are also in marginalized racial categories than necessarily for white folks. And I'm not sure that criminal pursuit is what is best for him at this point. That's one. Two, I think it's a commentary. If there is, let's find out that a large part of it was fabricated and it is a reflection of some mental health concerns for him. I think it's also a broader commentary on celebrity and the pressure of fame, and how much value we as a collective society place in external success and markers of success. And three, I do think there's a bigger conversation to be had around like why hate crimes and why crimes of oppression should be taken differently serious. Did I get my adjectives and adverbs right with that? And why this sort of hoax situation, we can't be distracted by the foolishness around this if it is a hoax situation. Like I would just want to keep the conversation appropriately centered, and I worry that it's not been appropriately centered.
And I am not going to help you to appropriately center that conversation, because I actually looked at this from a different perspective, which is why.
Of course you do.
Because, again, you're the psychologist and I'm the philosopher. So you always get rooted and grounded in the human experience, whatever.
Because philosophy is nothing but ideas up and thought bubbles above people's heads. Okay?
Well, think about this. You wouldn't have your best memes if you didn't have philosophy, because we bring the thought bubbles, right? Let's just say the argument can be made that what he's done shouldn't be deemed as wrong because, quote, white folk have been doing stuff like this for years and getting away with it. Then it becomes a conversation about power struggle and re-equalization of oppression and social dynamics and white privilege. And then it becomes, for me, an even bigger and more interesting conversation.
I'm down with that conversation. I think that's beyond the scope of what we can do right now. But I will say to that, though, to me, I've never been a fan of two wrongs make a right in any context. Not like in your most intimate interpersonal interactions, and certainly not on the bigger level. So should all of those white folks I felt like 2018 was just like a rash of permit patties and all the above. Like white folks went on some extra stuff last year. with calling 911 and calling the police for Black people just literally breathing.
And someone is going to call on this podcast right now. So you better be careful. It's going to be Podcast Peter. Podcast Peter.
Start trolling me. That's how I will know that I made it. But so should